The first thing people noticed about Caleb Rourke was the silence that followed him. It wasn't the peaceful kind of quiet that settles over fields at dusk. It was heavier than that, like a door closing slowly, sealing off a life that once had noise, laughter, and warmth. Caleb owned 300 acres of ranchland stretching along the high plains, land his family had worked for generations. The cattle were healthy, the fences straight, the barn solid. From the outside, his life looked steady. Complete even, but inside the old ranch house the rooms echoed. At 42, Caleb lived alone. His wife Emma had died 5 winters ago during a brutal snowstorm that closed the roads for days. Complications. That was the word the doctor used, a clean word for a loss that never felt clean. Since then, Caleb had learned how to exist without asking for anything more than survival. Wake before dawn, feed the cattle. Mend what broke, eat when hunger demanded it, sleep when exhaustion won. He didn't hire help unless he absolutely had to, so when the county inspector left a notice pinned crookedly to his barn door, unsanitary conditions. Cleanup required within 14 days. Caleb felt irritation spark through his usual numbness. The barn wasn't filthy, not by ranch standards, but a bad fall had left him with a stiff shoulder, and some jobs had been put off longer than they should have been. He needed help, just once. He drove into town the next morning and tacked a handwritten notice onto the bulletin board outside the feed store. Barn cleaning, one-time job, cash paid, ask for Caleb Rourke. He expected a teenager, maybe a drifter. He did not expect her. Her name was Mara Ellis. She showed up 2 days later in a faded blue pickup that rattled when it stopped. She stepped out wearing worn boots, gloves, already on, brown hair pulled into a messy braid. She couldn't have been more than 30. "I'm here about the barn," she said simply. Caleb studied her for a moment. People usually filled silences with explanations. She didn't. "It's hard work," he said. "I know." He nodded once and handed her the spare key. "Pays at the end of the day." "That's fine." No questions, no bargaining. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. Mara worked like someone who couldn't afford not to. She scrubbed stalls, hauled old hay, shoveled until sweat darkened the collar of her shirt. Caleb kept his distance, fixing a fence line near the pasture, watching only when he thought she wasn't looking. She didn't complain, didn't slow down. By late afternoon, the barn smelled of fresh straw and soap instead of rot. Caleb walked in to inspect the work and stopped short. Behind the far stall, hidden by stacked hay bales, 2 small shapes froze. Children, a boy and a girl. The boy looked about 8, his dark hair falling into his eyes. The girl was younger, maybe 5, clutching a threadbare stuffed rabbit like it was the last solid thing in the world. They stared at Caleb in absolute silence. His chest tightened. Mara turned, saw his expression, and closed her eyes. "I was going to tell you," she said quietly. Caleb didn't raise his voice. He couldn't. "Why are there kids in my barn?" "They don't go anywhere without me," she replied. "That's not an answer." She took a breath. "They're mine." The word landed heavier than any accusation. "You didn't think to mention that." "I didn't think you'd hire me if I did." Caleb looked at the children again. They weren't playing. They weren't exploring. They were hiding. "You can't just—" He stopped himself. "Yelling wouldn't change anything. This is dangerous." "I know," Mara said. "I kept them back. They stayed quiet. They always do." That sentence bothered him more than anything else she'd said. "They always do." Mara told her story sitting on an overturned bucket while the kids ate sandwiches she'd packed. She hadn't planned to end up here. After her husband died in a factory accident 2 years earlier, the bills piled faster than the grief. She worked wherever she could, cleaning, hauling, fixing. Babysitters cost money she didn't have. Shelters were full. Family was a word that existed only in past tense. "So I take them with me," she said. "We stay invisible." Caleb leaned against the stall door, arms crossed, invisible. He knew that word. "Why not ask for help?" he asked. Mara gave a tired smile. "People help when it's convenient. The boilie watched Caleb carefully, like he was memorizing every move. The girl, Nora, didn't look up from her rabbit. Caleb felt something shift, slow and unfamiliar. "I'll finish paying you," he said. Mara stiffened. "We'll leave." "I didn't say that." She looked up, startled. "I need the barn clean," he continued. "Inspector's coming back. You did good work." Silence stretched. "And the kids?" she asked. Caleb exhaled. "They can sit on the porch tomorrow. Safer." It wasn't kindness, that's what he told himself. It was practicality. The inspector approved the barn. Mara came back the next day, then the next. She cleaned the tool shed, organized tack, repaired torn feed bags. Caleb found himself adjusting his schedule without realizing it, making coffee earlier, leaving extra food out. The kids sat on the porch, drawing pictures in the dust. They didn't wander. They didn't touch anything without asking. One evening, as the sun bled orange across the fields, Nora toddled into the barn doorway. "Mr. Caleb," she whispered. He turned. "Is your house lonely?" The question struck deeper than it should have. "Yes," he said honestly. She nodded, satisfied, and went back outside. That night, Caleb lay awake longer than usual. Trouble came the way it always did, quietly at first. A neighbor complained. Someone called child services. A woman with a clipboard showed up unannounced, eyes sharp, voice polite but cold. Mara stood rigid beside her truck while the kids clung to her legs. "We've received concerns," the woman said, "about unsafe working conditions for minors." Caleb stepped forward before he thought better of it. "They're not working," he said. "They're supervised." The woman looked unconvinced. "If I file this report," Caleb's voice hardened, "you'll separate a family that's done nothing wrong." Silence. The woman studied the ranch, the clean barn, the calm children. "I'll be back," she said finally. Mara sagged against the truck once she left. "I'll lose them," she whispered. Caleb surprised them both. "You won't," he said. He made calls he hadn't made in years, dug through paperwork, spoke to a lawyer friend from high school. By the end of the week, he had an offer. "There's an empty guest house," he said awkwardly, "on the back acreage. You can stay, work, temporarily." Mara stared at him. "Why?" Caleb swallowed. "Because no one should have to hide." The kids moved in that night. Life didn't transform overnight. There were arguments, boundaries, fear that it would all disappear if anyone leaned too hard on hope. But slowly, sound returned to the ranch, footsteps, laughter. A radio playing softly in the kitchen. One evening, months later, Caleb watched Tilly teaching Nora how to bottle, feed a calf. Mara stood beside him. "You didn't just hire me to clean your barn," she said. "No," Caleb replied. "I think you cleaned something else too." She smiled, and for the first time in years, the silence didn't follow Caleb anymore.